Hey everybody, welcome to the Music Room. This is a brand new YouTube series that's all about music, how to play music, music theory, any little tips and tricks that we can shove into the series. We'll try to make you learn a little something and be a better musician. Today we're talking all about the musical alphabet, so some really basic music theory if you guys don't know this yet. I mean, if you started to play guitar, started to play piano, you may have heard of like these notes or you may have heard of these chords, but you may not actually know the musical alphabet or all the notes when it comes to playing a music instrument. So we're going to introduce you to these 12 notes, and these are basically every note that you're going to play in a musical instrument or every note that you'll read on a sheet of music. Anything like that. These are the 12 notes that you're dealing with. So when it comes to these notes, it is based on the English alphabet, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, all that stuff like that. But we stop short at G, okay? So the best way to learn the musical alphabet is to think of A to G as your starting point, okay? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's the starting point. And then what you have is you have notes that are in between these letters, okay? And these are called sharps or flats, all right? And there are actually two different ways of looking at the exact same note, okay? So when we talk about sharps, which are represented by a hashtag, okay, or a pound sign, or whatever you want to call it, when we talk about sharps, that means one semitone or one tone or one letter, okay, or one note above the letter, okay? So when we talk about A sharp, we're talking about a note that is higher than A, okay? When we talk about C sharp, that is one note higher than C, okay? And so this is how it works. Now there's two notes to know that technically don't have sharps, okay? If you want to get super technical, yes, they exist, but when you're starting to learn the musical alphabet, it's best to think of that these notes do not exist, okay? So the first is B, and the second one is E, okay? So B and E do not have sharp. So there's no E sharp and there's no B sharp. That's why in The Simpsons it's kind of funny when Homer named his singing group quartet the B Sharps. That was pretty funny, right? Maybe it wasn't Homer, it was somebody else. But anyways, those are the two notes that don't have sharps. But every other letter from A to G has a sharp, okay? Except for B and E. And so this is how it looks like. So you start with A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you have the notes in between. So you have A sharp, B, now B doesn't have a sharp, so you go directly to C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, now E doesn't have a sharp either, so you go directly to F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and then back to A, okay? So those are the 12 notes when you're talking about musical notes in terms of sharps, okay? So one more time, you start from A to G, you put sharps in between, and sharp means one above, okay? So A sharp is above A, C sharp is above C, and remember that B and E do not have sharps. So you have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, okay? And then the whole thing starts over again. Now, the other way to look at these musical notes is in terms of flats, okay? So flats are marked with a kind of little lowercase b, they look like, okay, a little lowercase b. And flats are the opposite of sharps in the sense that they represent notes that are lower than the letter they're talking about, okay? So when we talk about E flat, that's one lower than E, okay? So this is the other way to look at the 12 notes of the musical alphabet, okay? So you start with A to G, and the notes in between the flats are lower than the letter that they're talking about. Now, when it comes to flats, it's the opposite of sharps in the sense that there are two notes that don't have flats, okay? And that is C and F, okay? So there's no C flat and there's no F flat, okay? So when we go up the musical alphabet, this is what we end up with. We end up with A, B flat, B, C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, G flat, G, A flat, back to A. So that's the musical alphabet in terms of flats. Now when you look at the two alphabets side by side, okay, remember that these are representing the same note. The A, when you look at it in terms of sharps, is the same as the A when you look in terms of flats. Now the sharps and flats will line up with each other. So A sharp sits between A and B, but so does B flat, right? B flat sits between A and B. And those are actually, in fact, the same note. A sharp and B flat are the exact same note. just like D sharp and E flat are the exact same note, okay? They're just different ways to look at the same notes. Now, when you get into key signatures and all this stuff, it really starts to play a big factor. But now when you're just learning them, just use them interchangeably, okay? So a D flat is the same thing as a C sharp, just like a G sharp is the same thing as an A flat, okay? Now, how does this map to actual instruments? Okay, so when you look at a piano, okay, when you look at a piano, all of the white keys in a piano represent the regular letters from the English alphabet, A to G, okay? So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, okay? And all the black notes on a piano represent the flats or the sharps, okay? So you have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, back to A, okay? And you can do the same thing in terms of flats, okay? So it's A, B flat, B, C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, G flat, G, A flat, back to A. Okay? So what's really nice on a piano is that actually it's very easy to differentiate between the flats and the sharps and the regular notes, right? Because all the white keys are the regular notes and the sharps and flats are the black keys, okay? Now on a guitar, every fret on a guitar actually represents one of those 12 notes in the alphabet, okay? So it's not as easy to pick out on a guitar. Now a standard tuned guitar, the top string is tuned to E. So when you play that open string, that's an E note, okay? And then every fret you go up, you're going up these 12 notes in the alphabet. So you have E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Okay, and you're back to E. Okay, you can do that on the second string as well. The second string is the A string. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So as long as you remember the musical alphabet, okay, you can look at it in terms of sharps, or you can look at it in terms of flats, and know that there's equivalents, okay? Just remember in sharps, there's never a B sharp, there's never an E sharp. Or if you look at it in flats, there's never a C flat and there's never an F flat. Then you can memorize all those 12 notes. Now, two more things I want to say about the musical alphabet, a couple of terms that you might hear. When you talk about semitones, okay, semitones is if you go from any one note in that musical alphabet up to the very next note, okay? So when you go from A to A sharp, or if you go B to C, or D to D sharp, that's what we call a semitone, okay? Anytime you hop, okay, so let's say we go from B to C sharp, or if we go from E to F sharp, okay? Those are full tones, okay? So on a guitar, this is pretty easy because on a guitar, it's basically every 2 frets. If you hop a fret, you're going up a tone. On a piano, it's slightly different because on a piano, sometimes there's a black key in there and sometimes there's no black key in there. So if there's a black key in between, then if you're jumping from one white note to the other white note, then that is a tone. But if you're going directly beside each other, like B and C, that is a semitone. Okay, so you might hear those terms thrown around, semitone and tone, and now you know what they are. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the word octave, okay? As I said, the musical alphabet just has 12 notes. It goes A all the way up to G with flats or sharps in between. Now when you arrive back at that A, you have gone up what's called an octave, okay? It's like 8 letters, but technically it's 12 notes in there, okay? But it's 8 octave, okay? You've gone up 8 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, okay? It's an octave. And again, when you get into scales and key signatures, you'll know why it's 8, okay? But anyways, when you go back up to that letter, okay, that's known as an octave. So on a guitar, for example, if you go E, F, F sharp, G, all the way up to E again, that's known as an octave. You're playing the same note, but at a higher octave. So E all the way up to E, okay? Those two are the same note, but at a different octave. Same thing on a piano. You can go from C all the way up to C again, okay? All the way up to another C. So that's the same note played at 3 different octaves, okay? All right, that's it, guys. Memorize that musical alphabet, okay? When you're just doodling, just write it down on a piece of paper. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, and just write it out. do it with flats, recite it in your head. Get that stuck in your head, because that musical alphabet is going to be very important when it comes to this video I'm going to show you guys, called like the best guitar lesson I've ever had, or the best thing I've ever learned about guitar. Stay tuned for that, guys. We'll see you guys in the next music room.